Before we start, answer me this. What is cold to you? Is it when the thermometer drops to 0 degrees and you have to scrape your windshield before leaving for work? Is it facing a snowstorm in New York or spending the entire month of January with frozen ground in Chicago? Now forget all that. Imagine a place where winter easily hits minus 50 degrees, where the cold is so extreme that it freezes your tears, your beard, your eyelashes, and even the air you breathe. A place where going out without gloves isn't uncomfortable. It's a real risk of losing your hands. Today, Bello Mundo takes you to Oymyakon, in the heart of Siberia, a village lost on the map that defies logic and any definition you have of cold. Number 1. Location and general information. Oymyakon is located in the far northeast of Russia, in the middle of Siberia, more precisely in the Republic of Sakha, also called Yakutia. It is one of the most isolated and inhospitable regions on the planet, a village lost among frozen mountains, dense forests, and a silence that seems absolute. There are no trains, no airports, no neighboring cities. To get there, you have to endure hours of travel on the so-called Road of Bones, a highway built with forced labor by Soviet prisoners. On paper, Oymyakon is classified as a village, but in practice it is just a handful of wooden houses stuck in the ice, with a population of barely more than 500 people. The altitude doesn't help either. It is more than 700 meters above sea level. But what really defines the place is the cold. Oymyakon is considered the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth. In winter, the average temperature drops to below minus 40 degrees Celsius. And in 1933, the village recorded a record low of minus 69 degrees Celsius. Not even the inhabited areas of Antarctica reach anything like this. At the height of winter, there is almost no daylight. The sun rises, creeps across the sky for 3 hours, and disappears again. Even so, summer arrives. In June and July, the situation is reversed. The days are up to 21 hours long, and the temperatures really rise. There have been years when Oymyakon has reached 30 degrees above zero. This means that, in the same place, the difference between the cold of winter and the heat of summer can exceed 90 degrees. Few places in the world offer this kind of variation, and none force people to live under it. Number 2. History. Oymyakon did not come about by chance, much less by choice. For centuries, the valley was just a crossing point. Nomadic peoples from Siberia crossed the region with their herds and stopped there for a very specific reason: a hot spring that, by some miracle of nature, did not freeze even in the depths of winter. That is where the name came from. In the local language, Oymyakon means something like water that does not freeze, but no one considered living there permanently. That reality only began to change in the 20th century, when the Soviet Union decided to forcibly occupy the most remote regions of the country. Oymyakon was part of the package. The idea was to settle the indigenous peoples, exploit the gold reserves, and establish a military presence in that frozen wilderness. The promise was straightforward: high wages, guaranteed housing, and stability. In practice, many people were convinced or pressured to move to the end of the world. In the 30s, the situation became even more extreme. The region began to receive political prisoners and common criminals sent to forced labor camps in the surrounding area. These camps were part of Stalin's Gulag system. It was in this context that the famous Road of Bones was born, the only land link between Oymyakon and the rest of the country. The name is no exaggeration. During the construction of the road, hundreds of workers died. As the frozen ground was too hard to dig graves, the bodies were buried right there, under the asphalt. With these forced policies, the village grew. At the height of the Soviet era, there was mining, a collective farm, a military base, a school, a hospital, and a basic structure to keep the community functioning. But with the collapse of the Soviet Union, much of this fell apart. Without state support, many people left the region. Today, Oymyakon has between 500 and 900 permanent residents. Most belong to the Yakut ethnic group, descendants of the indigenous peoples of Siberia. But there are also Russian and Ukrainian families, many of them linked to the gold rush or the past of the camps. The economy survives as best it can. A little mining, cold-adapted livestock farming, fishing, hunting, and a rather peculiar type of tourism. Now that you know the geography and history, perhaps the most obvious question remains. How do people survive in a place where the temperature reaches almost minus 70 degrees? Number 3. Clothing. First of all, everything has to be planned, and that starts with what you wear. In Oymyakon, leaving the house without proper clothing is not a mistake. It's a real risk to your life. There is no winter fashion, there is a survival strategy. Every resident has an arsenal of heavy clothing, coats lined with reindeer or fox fur, boots lined on the inside, chapkas with thick flaps, leather gloves, and wool scarves covering their entire face. The rule is clear. Not a single inch of skin can be exposed. At minus 140 degrees, the wind freezes the skin in minutes. Frostbite is common. Noses, ears, and fingers can easily freeze. That's why the secret is in the layers. The first layer fits snugly to the body and helps retain heat. The second insulates the temperature. And on top of everything goes a heavy coat, usually made of animal skin. In fact, the use of skins is not traditional, but necessary. Deer, elk, or reindeer leather withstands extreme cold better than any modern fabric. No sneakers on the feet. Boots are sturdy, waterproof, and lined on the inside. And then there are the accessories: a hat, double gloves, a mask covering the face, and goggles. Even so, the cold still manages to get in. When the temperature drops to around minus 60, even the air hurts. The oxygen burns your throat, your eyelashes freeze, your nose stings, your fingers hurt, even when protected. Clothing, in this context, is not an accessory, it is a shield. A necessary shield to face a place where the climate seems to do everything it can to drive away anyone who tries to stay. Number 4. Housing. Besides clothing, there is one thing that requires even more planning in Oymyakon: housing. Because if the outside temperature is freezing, everything inside needs to function as a heat cocoon. Houses are usually made of wood, with double walls and reinforced thermal insulation. There is no traditional plumbing. If there are pipes running through the floor, the water inside freezes, expands, and the pipes burst. This means there is no running water, no sewage. Bathrooms inside the house? Forget it. Most residents use outdoor latrines, which are small wooden huts outside with a hole dug in the snow. Yes, that's right. In the middle of the night at minus 50 degrees, some people have to go out in the dark and cold just to use the bathroom. And if you hesitate, even the toilet paper freezes and turns to stone. Inside the houses, everything revolves around a single mission: staying warm. The central heating, powered by a coal-fired plant, runs 24 hours a day. Even so, many families still have extra wood-burning stoves, and the fire cannot be allowed to go out. During the winter, each family burns tons of wood and coal, and for that, they need to stock up in the summer. Piles and piles of firewood are stacked against the sides of houses. If the heater breaks or the fire goes out, within a few hours the house turns into a freezer. Literally. That's why everyone monitors the boiler as if it were a life. And remember the hot spring that gave the village its name? It still exists. That's where the water supply comes from. Water trucks go to this spring, fill their tanks with natural hot water, and distribute it to homes. As soon as the water arrives, families quickly transfer it to drums inside their homes before it freezes. This same water is used for central heating. Drinking water comes from another process, cutting blocks of ice from the frozen river and melting them at home. Even washing clothes becomes a challenge. You can wash them inside the heated house, but drying them outdoors is out of the question. Wet clothes freeze in minutes. They turn into boards. Bathing is not a problem because there is hot water, but you have to get out of the shower with your clothes already in your hands. If you leave the bathroom wet, the thermal shock can be dangerous. And cars? They suffer. Engines were not made to withstand the Siberian winter. Below -70, many no longer start. At -120, gasoline thickens, batteries die, and parts crack. Some people have heated garages. Number 5. Daily life. Daily life in Oymyakon is, as you can imagine, an exercise in adaptation. Children, for example, only stay home when the temperature drops below -52 degrees. Until then, they go to school as usual. Inside, the environment is heated with a generator and reinforced windows. The school routine is similar to anywhere else. There are math classes, recess, homework, and even physical education, always adapted to the extreme cold. There is also a curious detail. Ballpoint pens do not work in winter. The ink freezes inside the tube. Therefore, students use pencils or alcohol-based pens, which are more resistant to freezing. For those who work outside the home, the routine is even tougher. They have to wake up early, put on several layers of clothing, defrost the door, and hope the car starts. If the diesel has turned to paste or the engine has seized up, forget it. In Oymyakon, cars are more work than people. Some residents go to their vehicles with a portable blowtorch to warm up the engine from below. Many people simply leave their cars running while they shop or have a coffee at the bakery. It wastes fuel, but at least it ensures that the car will start again. In the end, many prefer to walk or use reindeer-drawn sleds. The roads are covered with ice and thick snow, and any problem along the way can be fatal if no one comes to help. In fact, just getting to Oymyakon is an adventure in itself. The village is more than 600 miles from the nearest large city, Yakutsk. During the winter, flying is almost impossible. Planes do not operate when the temperature drops below -60 degrees. The only way to get there is to face long hours on the dreaded Road of Bones. For this reason, drivers travel in convoys and carry emergency supplies, tools, blankets, and even sleeping bags. Social life is concentrated in closed, heated places, and even though they are isolated, the sense of community is strong. Everyone knows that in that absurd cold, no one can survive alone. It is common to see neighbors helping each other with stuck cars, sharing firewood, or taking care of the elderly and children. Number 6. Gastronomy. With frozen ground all year round and temperatures that kill any sprout before it can grow, it is easy to imagine that food in Oymyakon does not come from the garden. Fruits and vegetables are rare, and when they do arrive, they come from far away, are expensive, and are often already past their prime. For this reason, the local diet is based on animal protein: reindeer meat, horse meat, frozen fish, fermented milk, and large amounts of fat. The cuisine revolves around what survives the cold, or what can be stored for months without spoiling. Fish, for example, is eaten raw and frozen, like Siberian sashimi. It is cut into thin slices, still hard as rock, and eaten with salt or onion. Another common item is raw horse meat, also frozen. It may seem strange to outsiders, but there it is, a nutritious and storable source of protein. Animal fat is valued, not avoided. In a place where the body burns calories just to stay warm, every extra calorie counts. Fermented mare's milk, called kumis, is also widely consumed, as are heavy broths and thick soups that help keep the body warm. Overall, eating in Oymyakon is not about pleasure or variety. It's about energy, sustenance, and practicality. And despite the simplicity, residents manage to maintain a diet rich in protein and fat, which sustains the body even on days when the cold seems impossible to bear. Even with all these dietary and logistical difficulties, Oymyakon is not living in the Stone Age. Number 7. Infrastructure. Even in the middle of nowhere, Oymyakon is not completely cut off. The village has electricity supplied by the regional grid, reinforced to withstand high consumption in winter. There is also internet, Wi-Fi, satellite television, and mobile phone service. Everything works, as long as you're indoors. Outside, the extreme cold can turn a cell phone into a block of ice. Batteries drain quickly, screens crack easily, and internal components can simply stop working. That's why no one carries their phone loose in their pocket. Everyone keeps it inside their jacket, close to their body, to keep it warm. And they only take it out when they really need it. The same goes for cameras. Visitors usually bring several extra batteries and swap them out throughout the day, always keeping the spare ones warm in their pockets. If they don't, the equipment freezes and locks up. And it's not just technology that requires care. The village's public services also operate within the limits imposed by the climate. Oymyakon has a small health center with 1 or 2 doctors and a pediatrician. They handle basic care and the most common emergencies, mainly cold burns, frostbite, and cases of hypothermia. But if someone suffers a more serious accident or needs specialized care, there is no point in waiting for an ambulance. The patient has to be transported to Yakutsk, almost 1,000 kilometers away, or wait for a rescue plane when the weather permits. For this reason, residents take great care of themselves and each other. In extreme places, survival is a collective effort. The elderly and children are the responsibility of the entire community. There is always someone keeping an eye out to make sure no one gets into trouble. Even with so many challenges, there is still room for leisure. Oymyakon has a modest but functional infrastructure, a community gym, library, cafe, museum, market, and even a pharmacy. On weekends, young people gather to play ice hockey or lift weights at the gym. Adults prefer to fish on the frozen river. They drill a hole in the ice, set up a tent, and spend hours there trying to catch a fish or a cold. This is how the village stays alive, with a tough routine, yes, but full of small rituals that create meaning. And oddly enough, outsiders pay to experience it up close. Number 8. Tourism. It may seem crazy, but Oymyakon attracts visitors from all over the world. Most come in search of an unusual experience. They are adventurers, photographers, YouTubers, and scientists fascinated by the extreme cold. There are even agencies in Russia that specialize in taking tourists there during the winter. The itineraries include riding reindeer sleds, driving on frozen lakes, participating in ice fishing, and experiencing a little of the local culture, trying typical foods, wearing traditional Yakut clothing, and interacting with the locals. But it's not a trip for everyone. Those who go need to be very well prepared. It is mandatory to bring quality thermal clothing, special boots, equipment suitable for intense cold, And, above all, know how to protect yourself against frostbite. The guides provide guidance at all times. No taking off gloves, no sweating, no exposing skin to the wind. Because in the cold there, any carelessness becomes a serious problem. Even so, tourists have fun. Some people throw boiling water in the air just to see it turn into snow. Others pose with their hair and eyelashes covered in ice, or try to reproduce the classic experiment of frying an egg on the ground, which of course ends with the egg freezing in seconds. The region's hot springs have also become an attraction. Even with the snow falling, you can bathe outdoors, as the water comes out hot straight from the spring. And on special holidays, the community center turns into a party venue with music, Yakut folk, dancing, traditional food, and games, all heated, of course, because no one can stand celebrating in the middle of the ice. Despite the difficulties, residents tend to welcome visitors. For them, it's a chance to meet new people, show off their culture, and earn some extra income. Some act as guides, others offer accommodation or drive expedition vehicles. Right at the entrance to the village, a sign reading Oymyakon, capital of extreme cold, has become a mandatory selfie spot. While many would find it impossible to live there, about 500 brave souls call it home. But what about you? Would you dare to spend some time in the coldest city in the world, or would you rather continue enjoying the civilized chill of our winter in the tropics? Leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this freezing content, don't forget to subscribe here at Bello Mundo, leave your likes, and share with your friends. Maybe one of them will want to join you on a trip to Oymyakon. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you on the next adventure.